This afternoon, I will be your host as we briefly discuss the topic of compassion in this Transformation of Relationships series. My name is Alex TD, and this is a look on the surface. Hello there. If you remember last week, we discussed a little bit about how we can transform our relationships through presence. And in that video, there was a lot of good information presented. However, it went silent for the better portion of it. And one of the key elements that I would like to bring over to this week's topic is how our capacity to be present for others is largely dependent on the capacity to be present for ourselves. So, in that spirit, I'm going to utilize myself as an example for exemplifying compassion. It's going to be something I'm doing as an example from myself to you to show in real time a real life example of compassion for oneself and how you might be able to better carry that over into your relationships and thereby transforming them. So typically what happens when it comes to technical audio visual issues is a large degree of frustration. I've had a lot of time in the industries which would require such technical skills. And to have something so simple go so catastrophically wrong that it ruins the entire video, there's a certain degree of embarrassment, and it brings embarrassment to those skills, that confidence that I had in myself and my skills previously. So what I'm going to do right now for myself is to do an audio check for myself through this system that I have set up here. So I'm laughing at myself because it seems very silly that I would need to be that I need to be doing this. And I'm also laughing at myself because I know that this is something that I have not taken a lot of time to do throughout my life, and even as a day-to-day, week-to-week practice. So this is a little bit challenging for me to discuss live on this broadcast with all of you. And there's a certain degree of remembrance to who and what I am. And because of the past experiences that I have in being confident with myself in this kind of technical realm, there's also a certain degree of humbling that comes from what happened last week with the video going silent, which is okay. It worked out for that because silence is really all that's needed for presence to take place. So that's okay for that purpose. And for this week's purpose regarding compassion, it provides a perfect excuse to do this example. So I'm going to try to speak through this as I would for myself, as an example for the rest of you. So I have an external microphone that is set up to the camera, and that is the piece with which had the audio error last week. Now, if I, pardon the noise, if I tap that microphone, hopefully there is some audio signal feedback coming from there. Now, for me on my end, it would be very difficult to know whether or not that's taking place. So here, I'm putting on some ear devices here, headset, earbuds, excuse me, and I'm going to I'm going over to YouTube, and I can hear some feedback. So that tells me that the audio is coming through okay. Thank God. So this is normally something that would be done previous to the streaming process, and when it goes live, then we get what we get, and normally that wouldn't be such an issue. However, for the sake of this example, for today's topic on compassion, I'm showing you what I would do for myself to exemplify compassion in this way. So even though I'm already live on the broadcast, being compassionate with myself, knowing that I had a hiccup with my audio last week, and that kind of shook my confidence a little bit and created some fear that this week I might have the same issue. Now I'm giving myself that chance to, as silly as it may seem, be an example, using myself as an example to check this audio, which is helpful for kind of cracking down some barriers that I've had in previous episodes. Goodness me. Yeah. I feel like I asked for this in some roundabout way too, because the very beginning of this transformational series, for about 5 to 10 minutes prior to the broadcast going live, I would look at the channels on YouTube of various speakers with whom I have a particular admiration of. Ralph Smart, he does videos on the fly, one shot take. Alan Watts, he was very good at speaking his mind, not particularly caring when he stopped, when he spoke, or the way that he planned to talk. And there are a handful of other spiritual related speakers or health interviewees that I've seen who have very different ways of communicating their ideas during an interview or a live broadcast such as this. And I was doing that to have a little bit of compassion on myself, knowing that that's not exactly where things are at currently, and providing an inspiration for how things can be. So, with this rather humbling experience between this week and last, I certainly hope that my personal occurrence can be helpful in showing how, while yes, it may seem silly, it may feel embarrassing, and it may even induce some shame, depending on how critical the wounding from the past is to a particular event. I'm hoping that this can provide a little bit of a, how to say, an opening to show that even the best of us have hiccups. It doesn't matter how wonderful of a speaker someone is. If that microphone doesn't work, no one's going to hear a word, especially over digital live broadcasts. And an audience, it's a little bit different because one simply just needs to project their voice. So it's a slightly different chance to make up for a lost microphone in a face-to-face audience setting. But over here, a little bit up creek without a paddle in that manner. So let's move on with the compassion topic. So compassion, when we think about the word itself, it has the word passion in it. Passion is typically, in its origin, referring to some element of emotion, something heightened. And if we think of the prefix "com," you think of words like community, communism, commune. It usually has something to do with being together. So exactly how did those two things seem to fit together? If we're having it together in an elevated emotional state, that kind of changes the definition that we colloquially know this word to be used for. So how do we rectify that? I'm not entirely sure. So here, I'm finding myself a little bit embarrassed because this is a word that seems to have a paradoxical connection to the way that we typically look at it. Now, normally, by exploring this idea, we would have time to talk about each one individually and find how they integrate together in a seemingly paradoxical way, but really it's just two faces that are not yet facing each other that, when put together, make perfect and complete sense. That's part of the point of integration. So in recognizing this embarrassment that while we are together, you and I am in this elevated emotion of embarrassment, knowing that there will not be enough time to fully explore these seemingly paradoxical concepts. And instead, if you notice what I did there, I took what little time that we have available to us, took the "com" prefix, including that to mean you and I, and the embarrassed, elevated emotional state that I have as the passion, the wording itself, and putting that together. So I hope that starts percolating the idea of how to take these seemingly different concepts and portions of the word and putting them together, and how you might take the previous example that was exemplified and thinking about how you can better apply that to yourself, which will thereby improve the way that you apply compassion towards others and the rest of the world. That'll be all for now. I thank you for your time. My name is Alex TD, and this has been a look on the surface.